Hello students, welcome to another session of Tapasya for IAS. Today we are diving into 2024 UPSC PSIR Optional Previous Year questions. These questions are super important for your preparation. So grab your notebook and let's start. First question is elaborate the meaning inherent in the term political with appropriate illustrations. First question is about term political. What does it mean? It's big word with many meaning and UPSC loves testing how well you understand it. Let's make it simple. Power and authority. Political means who has power, who controls things and how decisions are made. It's about who gets what, when and how. For example, when a government makes a new tax law, that's a political. Or when a political party campaigning for votes, that's also a political. Even in a family, if parents decide who gets pocket money, that's a small kind of politics. Second is public sphere. Political is about things that affect everyone, not just personal stuff. It's about coming together to discuss and decide for the community. Example, when MPs debate climate change law in parliament, that's political. Or when people protest against a bad policy, that's a political too. Even in a local meeting to fix a park is also political. Conflict and competition. Next we see conflict and competition. Politics often involve fight between parties, groups, or ideas. People compete for power and resources. They often compete for power and resources. For example, two parties fighting in election is political. Or when farmers protest for better price, that's political struggle. Even in an office, if two teams want a bigger budget, that's a politics. Ideology and values. Political also means the beliefs or ideas behind actions like liberalism, socialism, or conservatism. Examples, debate on whether the government should control businesses or give more freedom to people. That's political because it's about values. Next is personal is political. This comes from feminist ideas. Things like family issues or women's rights are also political because they involve power in society. Example, women fighting for voting right or equal pay. That's a political, even if it seems personal. So here I want to give you one tip. For 20 markers, write a short intro defining political, then explain these points with examples and with the conclusion saying political is not just about government but about power, society and values everywhere. Next question is 1b. Marxism is a political theory of action demanding strict compliance with its own principles. It's a 50 mark question, so let's break it in simple terms. So let's talk about Marxism. It's not just a theory to understand society, it's a call to action. Marxism says capitalism is bad and the working class must overthrow it. But does it demand strict compliance? Let's see. First, here first point of discussion is action oriented theory. Marx said philosophers only explain the world. The point is to change it. So Marxism pushes for revolution, not just thinking. For example, workers organizing a strike to demand better wages, that's Marxist action. Here second is historical materialism. Marxism says history moves in a fixed path from capitalism to communism. If you don't follow this path, you are seen as going against the revolution. Example, if someone says let's reform capitalism instead of overthrowing it, Marxists might call it wrong because it doesn't fit their theory. That is Vanguard Party. Lenin says a small group of dedicated leaders, the Vanguard Party, must guide the workers. They need to follow Marxist principle strictly to keep the revolution on track. Example, in Russia, Lenin's Bolshevik led the revolution and they did not allow much deviation from Marxist ideas. Fourth is class consciousness. Marxism says Marxism says workers must understand their exploitation and act together. If you don't agree with this, you are not helping the cause. Example, a worker who supports the capitalist boss instead of joining a union is seen as against Marxism. But there's a catch in real life. Marxism has a many versions like Maoism or Eurocommunism. So while it demands strict compliance in theory, people have applied it differently. So here one motive. Start with what Marxism is and explain why it demands compliance. Give examples but also mention its flexibility in practice and with balanced conclusion. Now we will see next question 1C. 1C says the nature of relationship between equality of democratic citizenship and liberty of citizens is influenced by economic equality. This is 15 mark question. Here tell what is comment. So let's break it. This question is about how equality in democracy and personal freedom depends on economic equality. Sounds complicated, no? So let's make it simple. Your first point of discussion is democratic citizenship and money. Everyone gets one vote, right? But if rich people control elections with money, like funding campaigns or media, the poor's vote matters less. Example, in some countries, only rich candidates can afford to run for elections, so real equality is missing. Second is liberty and resources. Freedom of speech or protest sound great, but if you are poor, you might not have money or time to use these freedoms. For example, a poor person can't afford a good lawyer, so their right to justice is weaker than a rich person. Third is economic insecurity hurts freedom. If you are struggling for food or a job, you might not speak against the government because you are scared of losing work. Example, effective workers might not join a union because they fear getting fired. Fourth is more economic equality helps. If wealth is more equal, everyone can participate better in democracy. They have time, education, and security to vote or protest. Example, countries with good welfare system like free education see more people voting because they feel secure. Here I want to give you one tips like explain how economic inequality affect the democratic equality and liberty with clear example. And you have to conclude by saying the economic equality strengthens to democracy and freedom. Here so let's move to next question section B. Section B question B and question second A. Debate. The debate on human rights is caught between the limitations of both universalism and relativism. It's a 20 mark question, so you have to comment on it. So let's begin. Let's move to section B. I have already moved. This question is about human right and the clash between universalism and cultural relativism. Let's break it down. First is what's universalism? It says human rights are the same for everyone, no matters the culture or country. Here is strength. It gives a strong base to fight abuses like torture or slavery everywhere. The UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights is based on this. Weakness. Some says it's too Western, pushing ideas like individualism that don't fit all cultures. Plus, enforcing it is tough because countries don't like outside interference. For example, we see here Western countries pushing for gay rights globally might clashes with culture that see it differently. Here second is, what's cultural relativism? What's cultural relativism? It says right depends on cultural traditions and values. So what is strength here? It respects cultural differences and avoid judging others by one standard. What is your weaknesses? Weakness is here, it can justify bad practices like child marriage by calling them cultural. Also, cultures are not fixed. Some people within a culture might want change but get ignored. Example, some countries depend on harsh punishment as a cultural, but it can harm human dignity. That is the class. Universalism might seem like forcing Western ideas, while cultural relativism might excuse abuses. Both have flaws, so we need a middle path. So, what is the solution? You have to focus on core rights like no torture that most culture agree on. Encourage dialogue to respect culture but protect dignity. For example, UN tries this by working with local groups to promote right in ways that fit the culture. You have to remember one thing here, define the both terms, list their pros and cons with examples, and suggest a balanced solution. Write a clear conclusion about finding a middle ground. So let's move to a next question. Next question is Benamo. Deliberative democracy seeks to promote democratic decisions making about public issuing among the citizens. Discuss. So it's a tell but it's discuss. This is 15 mark question. So let's begin to break it. This is about citizens discussing and deciding together, not just voting. Let's see how it works. So first is reason discussion देखते हैं. It's not about sorting your opinion, it's about giving reasons and listening to others. For example, in a town meeting, people debate a new park's location with facts and logic, not just emotions. Second here is everyone gets a voice. It's democratic only if everyone can join the talk, rich, poor, young, and old. For example, citizens juries bring random people to discuss policies like budgeting for schools. Here, third point of discussion is changing minds. Through discussions, people learn new things and might change their views. For example, we can discuss here. Someone might support a factory project but change their mind after hearing about pollution effect. Here, fourth point of discussion is legitimate decisions. If decisions come from fair discussions, people accept them even if they disagree. For example, a city holds public forum on a new road. So when those against it feel the process was fair. Fifth is challenges. It's tough to do in big countries and powerful people might dominate talks. For example, in debate, richer or louder people might overshadow others. You have to remember one tips here. Explain what deliberative democracy is and how it promotes decision making. And you have to give here example. And also mention that to challenges but and with why it's valuable for democracy. So move to our next question. Next question is Dharmashastra present a duty-centric worldview for individuals and communities. This is the first topic of your syllabus. You can remember here. You have to comment in this question. This is 50 mark question. So an ancient Indian text that all about duties, not rights. Let's understand it simply. What Dharmashastra is. Dharma is the key. Dharmashastra says life is about following dharma. Your duty is to do what's right. For example, a king duty is Rajdham, is to protect people, not to rule for himself. So second point of discussion is here. Sadha means your own duty. Everyone has specific duties based on their role. Brahmins, Kshatriya, student, and a parent. For example, a Brahmin duty is to study and teach, while a Kshatriya is to fight and govern. The third is Social harmony. If everyone does their duty, society stays balanced. It's about working together, not fighting for rights. For example, parents care for their kids, kids respect parents. This keeps families strong. No rights, no duties. Unlike Western ideas of I have a right, Dhamsa says I have a duty. If a king does his duty, people get protection, but it's not called a right. For example, a rich person's duty is to give charity, so the poor benefit without demanding it. Fifth is spiritual goal. Doing your duty leads to moksha, liberation. So it's not just about society, but also your soul. For example, a student following their duty to learn properly is also a path to spiritual growth. Here, one tips I want to give you. Define Dharmasas, explain its focus on duties with example, and contrast it with right-based views. Conclude by saying it's about harmony and moral living. So, friends, that's it for today's discussion on 2024 PSIR Optional PYQs. Keep practicing and these questions, and you will nail your answer. If you found this helpful, smash that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe to Tapasya for IAS. For more UPSC preparation tips, you can ask any doubt. Drop your doubts in the comment sections, and we will answer them in next section, next videos. Stay focused, stay motivated, and let's crack UPSC. Jai Hind.